Hey everybody, it's Tripl-L coming in to talk about My Hero Academia chapter 296, and we're doing the proper walkthrough impression kind of thing. I'm not going to be going off of a script this one because we already covered half of the chapter last week, and I don't have enough time to do a script. These videos usually take 3 hours to make because of the script, so hopefully I'll get through all the points I want to get through. I have it in my head. So yeah, I hope everyone's having a great day. I hope you had a great Christmas. I hope you're having a great New Year. And ahead of time, I'm going to say a special thanks to people who watched the live stream. Miguel, White Despair, Black Fox, Edens, Skelly Prower, Nicholas. I might be forgetting a bunch of people, but I think those are the people that talk about My Hero Academia the most. Matthew, yeah. Just in case I mentioned something from their ideas, I will do my best to try and give them the credit there. Anyway, let's begin with the chapter. In terms of general notes, I do have a very quick one. It's Horikoshi specifically. Horikoshi on Twitter put out that he forgot Skeptic in one of the panels. So what he wants you to know is that Skeptic is in fact with the current villain group. I was actually very happy to see that he legitimately forgot Skeptic at one instance, because that makes me feel like, well, if you forgot him this time to the point that you had to put it up on Twitter, it's possible you might have forgotten him before. And this leads to a point about serialized storytelling, especially in manga form. The mark of a good storyteller is when you make a mistake and you don't let readers know you've made a mistake, like you don't let them confirm it, kind of thing. Such that when it comes to serialized stories like a manga, you might forget to do something in chapter 293, but then you can just squeeze a little detail in to make it look like you never forgot, make it look like it was all part of the plan. One part of storytelling, I feel, is the ability to make mistakes look like they're part of the plan. And mind you, there's different ways that manifest in different stories. Like in a novel, you might have a very unique situation where maybe like novel 2's content had a contradiction that you then have to like give a justification for in novel 5 to make it look like an exception as opposed to you forgetting something. It's just like that kind of process. But it was really cool to see that bit of a note from Horikoshi. Anyway, chapter 296. So first page, Hellish Hell. This page, not important, page 1. It just tells us who went to go deal with Shigaraki. Now, page 2 and 3. So page 2 is the one that shows us who's alive still, right? We had Pixie Bob, we had Wash, we had 13. President Mike being back makes sense because he got he was the one escorting the doctor, so him being back made sense. Now, I know that people might be saying that, of course, Pixie Bob would survive. She can make flying monsters. That is anime original from what I saw. And when I look at this page here on page 2, like it looks like there's a giant bit of earth coming up out of the ground. My stance is if it's anime original or only in the anime, I am not going to believe it. Because the anime, I don't know when the anime is ultimately going to be making a mistake or when the anime goes too far in making a scene cooler, right? It's like the whole situation with Bakugo back during, what, season 2? When Bakugo is getting away from the villains and somehow he jumps 10 buildings all in once when it's like, they're just right above you, bro, right? The anime does stupid things when it comes to some situations, so there's no reason to believe the anime when it goes off script from the manga. So that's my situation with Pixie Bob there for anyone that was wondering about that. And that was a direct answering to Mega Green Kirby. But that's my idea on that. In terms of Wash, I was happy to see that Wash survived. People mentioned Mega Green Kirby that Wash could just ride his own bubbles. We had not seen that ability, and I was really concerned that it was more of a thing that Wash can't be affected by his own bubbles, because you never really know, right? Mineta, he has a sticky substance that affects everyone else but him. And that's why these kind of things get a little bit harder. And I do think Horikoshi used Wash running specifically to invoke that doubt. 13, as you guys know, if 13 survives, 13's a traitor. But this one's actually, I don't know how to think about this. 13 lost an arm. Right now, it seems like perhaps 13 maybe got disintegrated a little bit when she realized that decay couldn't be stopped by sucking it into the black hole. And then maybe she ran away afterwards. It's really hard to... I am actually very interested in how 13 survived, just because she was the one that stayed behind as everyone else got a head start on her. But yeah, on the bottom page too, it was a nice scene of Carnage seeing all those Nomu fly away. Now, as we go to page 3, one of the things that I first think is like, who is the narrator? This is definitely the page that made me really wonder about it. Like, is it really Izuku? Because they have a little spot here where it's like, we're commanded to team up and execute distraction and disturbance strategies. That's really specific. I'd really rather believe that that was the author's like omnipresent voice talking, but it just throws me off a little bit. But anyway, valuable things on this page is Shigaraki's right arm was bleeding a lot. Shigaraki still has the right arm. It looks like he still has it because like at the end of the chapter we do see that his arm looks missing, but it might just be super bloodied. Anyway, in this page we find out 3 of the near high ends were brought down but left Shigaraki with lucky number 7. We move on to page 4, which was just telling us who were captured, Higanto and Compress, and then we get to finally see Edgeshot and Redestro taken down. So Redestro in that shot does still have a little bit of his stress leaking out. And if you look at Edgeshot's arm is pretty mangled. Like, it actually looks pretty bad for the left arm. But he'll probably be fine. That looks like Izuku level mangling, which for Edgeshot's probably not going to be a big deal. When you move on to page 5, what you see is of course the aftermath for Getten. Getten is crying. There's a guy that looks suspiciously like Emmanuel, but I assume it's just a similar design. And of course we have Cementos. Cementos isn't on the final death page, so I don't think Cementos died here, but you know, there's always the possibility that he'll die in the future kind of thing. For Cementos, I think it's likely that he'll live. It looks like he's been punctured, but it's his gut, so I think that's a wound that they might be able to get healed up. We go to page 7. This was a page that we already talked about last week, just detailing which of the members got caught. There are a few advisors in that first little group, and it was cool to see Fourkind. And of course, it was also good to get the clarification that the other bases scattered around the country were hit up too. So when it comes to the other bases, at this point, that's really where we can say Monoma is, right? It'll be interesting if anything comes out of those bases, but for now we should probably just assume that the bases are going to be like a throwaway kind of plot point. It's probably not going to come up. If it does come up, we can be very happy. Page 7 is the page where we get a little bit of an update about Toga. It's not really an update, it's more like an acknowledgement because Tsuyu or Ochako, they don't really know where Toga went. So this is just, again, the author reminding us that Toga is a wild card in all of this. It's honestly, we already saw her running away. It's not a detail that actually makes a big impact if you were reading like the last 3 chapters all together. The more impressive thing on this page is of course seeing the scale of destruction that Higanto left in his wake. We go to page 8 and 9 where we have the wonderful sequence of Ochako and Tsuyu together. Again, I like seeing kids in this situation. I like seeing kids cry here. Because I think a good chunk of the fan base needs to see this. These are the victims of whenever they go around celebrating the villain's existence, like the villains are the best thing to happen in the world. Like, no, they're not. The villains are crazy. The villains don't understand how things... The villains are all antisocial in their own various ways. How could you say the villains are the best thing about the world when the villains literally cannot relate to the world because of their antisocial personality disorders, right? It doesn't make sense. You know, villain sympathizers always gets me. They're always interesting to read, but they always get me. Again, this was a cool little thing here. And I do want to point out, seeing Ochako and Tsuyu here, this is where they really should be, right? Ochako really is built for disaster management. This is the best spot for them. Honestly, I think Ochako having the quirk she did, having such a non-combat-y quirk, really just makes like it makes the game hard for Horikoshi when it comes to writing her, or to have her in cool scenes where she can actually do something. At least Ida has extreme mobility and speed and jet-powered legs. At least Ida has the capability to actually be able to be caught between 2 Nomus and still have the luxury to say something to Bakugo. But Ochako doesn't have those same strengths. Ochako requires a little bit more work to actually make her survive things. So, you know, when I see Ochako here, I think this is like these are the best scenes for her. But it's unfortunate because her power makes her hard to work with in the more exciting scenes. That said, what Horikoshi did here with Ochako I think was good, because Ochako had a very surreal, meeting with reality, I guess you could say. Also, it was very cute with the kid saying that, hey, you can have my Endeavor pouch. So keep that in mind, that this kid is still a fan of Endeavor, because that is a little bit of a theme going on in this chapter. So page 10 is definitely my favorite Ochako page, because of the setup for the page, right? When you have the guy saying, "My wife's inside, hurry up, miss," and you see Ochako freaking out. You know what, the moment I saw that, I'm thinking, yo, this is just like the Toga situation. I like it because it's saying that even though Ochako was screwed over royally by Toga, because who knows how many people died that Ochako could have potentially have saved if Toga didn't get in the way, right? Even though she was screwed over by Toga, Ochako still goes in there with that memory of Toga screwing her over so freshly in her mind, right? So I think that was a really powerful moment for the girl, and this is like one of those very subtle, powerful moments. I really respect it. I think this was really a beautiful thing here. Again, I think Ochako works best in these type of situations. The author's always been very good, subtly developing Ochako, like having her see first up the harsh reality of the situation, right? She saw the harsh reality when she was up against Bakugo. She just can't beat Bakugo. She saw the harsh reality when Night Eye was pretty much dying in her arms. And she's seeing the harsh reality here, symbolized by how her hair kind of just falls flat when she's covered in rain, right? I like using Ochako for this, but the ultimate problem here is that it's unfortunate that this is the main female character in an action manga. That is the real sadness here, because it's scenes like this that are ultimately not going to endear Ochako to the same degree that Momo's being endeared when it comes to the polls. And this isn't just a Japanese thing. It's actually really interesting. Ochako is 16th place in the Japanese poll and also the French poll, which was open to a wider audience. But yeah, no, when it comes to like getting people excited about a character, Ochako is the kind of character that you look at her character and you appreciate and you respect, but she doesn't have the star power that say Bakugo or Dobby have, right? I mean, like, you look at her scenes, she's just too somber. Her scenes are too quiet because the situation that she's encountering is a quieting scene. Page 11, we see a little bit more. We have Koda, another one of the useless Class 1A students, just doing useless things. He's not doing useless things, but you know, Koda's just a guy there. He's helping a little kid. There's a lot of little kids in this area. I'm actually very concerned. I'm assuming they're all preschoolers, because that's the only thing that makes sense to me, because there were other kids who were going to school today, I believe. We did see Todoroki's sister at school, so they're working, but really unfortunate. A lot of kids lost parents, most likely. Page 11, though, is where we start seeing the descent to despair, or like the reckoning, with Ochako's hair falling and seeing the guy saying that he just can't take this anymore. And of course, we have that wonderful double spread of just the destruction in front of them. Ultimately, the man saying he needs a new line of work, I'm not going to fault that. You know, some people don't have the mentality here. Now, when you look at the situation and you see what's going on here, you know, I want to point out there's paramedics there. Paramedics are working hard. But chances are paramedics are also going to be like, I can't be in this job anymore, kind of thing, right? We all react to trauma differently. Now, what's important here is that, say Japan had like a really bad earthquake, you might see destruction at this level if it's like a 9. Let's say, I don't know if we've ever had a 9, but let's say if it's a 9, we know that Japan has had a really bad history with earthquakes. So I think and seeing the amount of destruction that an earthquake and tsunami combo bring in, I think it's fair to say that, you know, they have had a disaster response, maybe with the same amount of people on screen, kind of thing. Now, when you look here, what's important here is that, you know, Japan and their emergency workers, maybe this is the kind of like hopelessness that they might feel during a disaster. But what's important to note here is that this is a disaster that was brought on by human hands, not one brought on by nature. What that is to say is that I think heroes and people in general can accept natural disasters a bit better than, let's say, bombing major cities. So really, when people are sympathizing and defending the villains, let's just remember the end game here was bombing major cities. And if that wasn't the end game, it's Shigaraki dusting everything, much like how we saw in these in this arc. I'm not sure if you could tell, but like, it's always the villain sympathizers, like the ones that say that the villains have done no wrong. It's like, look, man, if Endeavor's done wrong, the villains have definitely done wrong. But no, I enjoyed the scene. Moving on, there's something here at the bottom of page 13. We see Mina holding Midnight's hand. Now the thing is, the way that Midnight's holding on to Mina's hand, I don't think Midnight was dead when Mina reached her. I think it's likely Midnight might have had like some final words. So that might be kind of interesting to see in the future. Now, the Midnight death scene, we saw this one already. We talked about it last week, and we also talked about like Shigaraki being revived by the light, by the electricity. Sure, I can accept that he was brought back to life because of his strong will, whatever. Shonen, got it. And then we have the death page. So the death page, we talked about it more on the live stream, and there is something I want to point out here for some of you guys. And it's just like the people that died, right? When it comes to the death page, losing Midnight and Majestic is gonna really suck for Momo. It's unfortunate that Momo loses two people that are important for her. Kendo lost her teacher, Native's gone. I want to point you to another page. It was page 2. It was a page from chapter 263. And this is just like something I want to point out to you in terms of what the author does. I'm gonna just show you. If you look at that first little initial zoom, there's a bunch of detailed designs. We can see the guy that twice killed, and you know, when you look at the death page, if you look right behind Miss Joke, you can see this guy, and then look right there, right? He's on the death page. What that is to say is that really, when the author is putting a lot of effort into designs, like in group shots like that you haven't recognized before, really, when he's doing that, really take a good look at that and think about, okay, you actually put effort into this design. It's not just a smudge on a page that you can't really make out. What do you want to do with that design? Usually when an author puts in effort like that, it says that he has some kind of plan. You might not always see that plan come to fruition because of the nature of serializations. It's just a good thing to keep in mind in general. Anyway, the first one, Midnight, we know who that was. The second row is people that are technically important. It's kind of unfortunate though that Midnight is the one that readers have the most connection to. But you know, Crust, Majestic, Exilus, 3 people that you could say had more importance than the no-names below, because the no-names start with Native. Native being there, I said this at the very beginning of the arc, having so many characters that we've seen before from previous arcs just pretty much means that Horikoshi was going to have multiple people he could kill off. So Native starts off the no-names, and then we go into the other no-names, people that we might have seen in the chapter before dying, and then the final row is just people I have never seen before. Who knows who those people are? One thing we talked about when it came to Midnight is that I don't really like when comic relief characters die. Just because that makes things worse. Like, the villains lost twice, and losing Midnight, like, makes me sad. Okay, page 16. Really interesting page, right? You have people talking. You see the teenager saying that Dobby totally sucks. And then you have the old ladies gossiping. And I just want to point you to one of these lines. Ever since his days as number 2, I had a feeling something shady was going on behind the scenes. This is like the worst kind of person. The person who looks at hindsight and talks about how they always had a feeling. You know someone like this in your life. You know there's someone like this. No, these are the worst kind of people. These are the people that are causing the more problems. Oh, I had a feeling. Yeah, okay. What's that gonna help anyone? Nah, man, nah. Like, not you all, like, chances are the majority of you are teenagers and older. You know someone like this. Just a gossip. There was another thing here too, where someone says, "Isn't it his job to protect us? What's going on?" And that line, you know, that's just typical of Hero Academia society. I think that line kind of just shows the lack of depth that people exercise when it comes to their thoughts. The situation here is that Endeavor did legitimately protect people at this point in time. But the situation is a lot grayer than people are willing to give it credit for. Which moves us into the next little bit, where people are saying his career's finished for sure. Maybe he'll move abroad with that money. We'd better have a statement ready about all this tomorrow. And that's like the big, or sorry, he'd better have a statement. And that's like the big thing that tells you how entitled the Hero Academia society is. It's like, Endeavor knocked out a giant. Endeavor is part of the reason why Shigaraki did not get to do a wave 2. Endeavor doesn't necessarily owe you a statement immediately tomorrow. Like, yes, but legitimately, he doesn't owe that to the people here. Like, what he owes to the people, I feel he's already kind of put forward into the world. Now, of course, the big thing is the situation with Dobby, and how do we properly balance the scales when it comes to Endeavor's past here. But that opens a much bigger conversation about, well, would Endeavor's career actually be finished? Yeah, maybe Endeavor won't get endorsements. Yeah, maybe Endeavor will lose public support, but no one's going to want to get rid of Endeavor at the peak of villains. So this is the big issue. Honestly, for Endeavor, I think it would be better off if Endeavor continues working but doesn't get accolades, doesn't get celebrated the way the media celebrates him, doesn't get put on energy drinks. A big problem with Hero Academia Society is the commercialization of the heroes. Stain would agree with this. Not only Endeavor, many heroes could do better with not being commercialized and put out there. Do you see your fireman on your billboards all the time? Actually, maybe sometimes, but you don't know that fireman's name. If Endeavor's career was finished and he went back to being just a hero that's doing his job without any kind of praise, that's an ideal I think that we should all get behind for all heroes. The heroes don't need to be endorsed, which leads to the bigger point is that ultimately we're in a situation here where the villains are lashing out against a complacent society. They're lashing out against a society that doesn't necessarily care about them. Endeavor as well is slightly a product of that same society, in that a society that valued a position as number one, that society created the pursuit to be number one in general. Now mind you, we've got to be very careful here when we're talking about Endeavor and who exactly is to blame here. I would say society didn't need to rank heroes, but society's competitive. Society needs to have someone who's on top and someone who's at the bottom. Society needs to have someone who's normal and someone who's an outcast, or you know, current society. Hero Academia Society for sure. Definitely society's structure influenced Endeavor's descent into madness and his tunnel vision. Of course, Endeavor is also responsible for not stopping his descent when he still could, and he should be held responsible for that. But of course, there's more complications. Endeavor's family may not want to have Endeavor punished in the court of law. Then that means he's probably going to be assassinated in public, kind of thing. He's going to be judged by society itself. Which some people might say is a fair enough retribution. Other people might say, well, Endeavor's already kind of paying for what he's done, with Dobby quite literally coming back from the grave to take him out, kind of thing. There's a lot of ways to ultimately look at the Endeavor situation, but when the dialogue is beginning with his career's finished for sure, when they're talking about that, that's the thing that just tells you how superficial the common folk in society are being trained to look at the heroes, that they can even have the luxury to say that his career's finished for sure right after such a big disaster, when they know villains are a full-on problem. That's the people who can stand to say that are the people that haven't been directly affected by that tragedy just yet. So it's gonna, what this is all to say is that it's gonna be very interesting to see how this all evolves, because when you look at the younger population still believes in the heroes, and we saw this earlier on with that little boy saying about his Endeavor plush. I do think Endeavor should come forward. I do think Endeavor should take his hits. Like, if the media wants to eviscerate him, sure, do it. Even though the media in their promotion of the heroes created the framework for this problem to fester, the reality is Endeavor still has to be held accountable to some degree here. There are merits to criticizing Endeavor's past behavior. And finally, page 18 and 19. 18 establishes that All For One is waiting in Tartarus, and then you have 19, which is just pretty much saying some pretty dark things, which are a little bit different from the fan translations. So let's read this out. Why do they assume tomorrow will come for them? Because it's my turn now, and my turn will never end. So that's a little bit dark, and when you have that superimposed over Shigaraki in fetal position in the dark, that seems like Shigaraki just became a battery. Like, Shigaraki's being held down, and when you say your turn's never gonna end, it's like, are you saying quite literally you're not giving Shigaraki his space, you're just gonna drain him of his anger to like power yourself? Or are you saying like you and Shigaraki together are not going to end your turn, right? Like, that's the next level interpretation. And on this page, we also see that Dobby has black hair again. I'm going to assume that's a mistake. I'm going to assume that they are not showing it. I noticed that the author also forgot Skeptic. I assume that's because this was still before he realized he forgot Skeptic, because Skeptic's not in the shot. So ultimately with Shigaraki, you know, what are we doing? What's going to happen next? There were two big questions. People were asking, like, the people that we saw on the death page, are those the only deaths we're going to get? I think, again, it is likely to say, and when I say likely, I mean 60%, that the heroes that we saw killed are the heroes that were killed for this event. There are still a few people that might die like 2 weeks later in the hospital, like Cementos. But for now, it looks like these are the people that are definitely done for this event. Now, if we go into Prison Break and for some reason there's more heroes involved, then obviously heroes would die there. When it comes to All For One, I'm actually wondering if he actually is serious about sending his Nomu in right now. Because, you know, as a reader, I want to take a break. If the author doesn't want to show this next week or like in 2 weeks, I don't really mind. But I want a break. But if he doesn't want to do that, sure. If he goes in and breaks into that place right now, it's going to be interesting. It makes sense why he would, because, like, let's face it, the heroes are all over the place right now. Probably no one's guarding the prison aside from the regular workers, and the regular workers probably aren't going to deal with the Nomu very well. So, you know, I want to take a break. I hope that the author has an interesting way of showing this, but if he just goes balls to the wall and just raids the prison, what can you do? That's cool too. Ultimately, guys, let me know what you thought down below. I'm done here. It was a cool chapter. Thanks so much for watching. I feel like I might have forgotten a talking point from the live stream, but if I did, apologies. Thank you all for watching, and until next time, I hope you have an absolutely great day.